Good morning to our viewers and welcome to the National Arts Council's Reconciliation Month Roundtable Discussion webinar. My name is Mbalenhle from the Marketing and Communications Unit at the NAC. The aim of this discussion is to celebrate the Reconciliation Month by discussing the role of the arts in nation building, exploring the impacts of the arts in advancing social cohesion, addressing social ills, and supporting reconciliation. This dialogue and many others illustrate the mandate of the National Arts Councils, which are to provide and encourage the provision of opportunities for persons to practice the arts. Just to note, the arts refers to the following disciplines: craft, dance, literature, multidiscipline, music, theatre, and visual arts. To promote the appreciation, understanding, and enjoyment of the arts. To promote the general application of the arts in the community, to foster the expression of the national identity and consciousness by means of the arts, to uphold and promote the rights of any person to freedom in the practice of the arts, to give the historical disadvantage such as additional help and resources as are required to give them greater access to the arts, to address historical imbalances in the provision of the infrastructure for the promotion of the arts, to promote and facilitate national and international liaison between the individuals and institutions in respect of the arts. And finally, to develop and promote the arts to encourage excellence regarding these. The National Arts Council's function is to support individuals, organizations, and institutions. Please note that we currently have 3 open calls for funding, which are 2 bursary fundings, namely the NAC's local block institutional bursary funding, which invites accredited South African higher education and tertiary institutions to apply on behalf of their undergraduate students pursuing arts-related qualifications. The other bursary funding is the local individual postgraduate bursary funding, which is for students accepted at a South African tertiary institution for postgraduate qualification in the arts. The last funding call is the Arts Organization Support funding, which is a 3-year funding for registered organizations or companies within the arts. Our support includes, but it's not limited to, financial support, advice, and information to any person, organization, or institution. Also, be aware that the National Arts Council can determine which field of the arts should take preference for the purpose of support. Please follow our social media platform for more information on upcoming funds and funding calls so that you can take this opportunity to submit your project funding applications. Also, regularly check our websites and social media platforms for more information on our funding, as they differ per funding call. Before we get into this dialogue, I'd like to announce some house rules. Would all the speakers and participants remain on mute when not speaking? Please raise your hand to be allowed to speak. Participants are welcome to send their questions or comments via chat on Zoom or use the comment section on Facebook. It's going to be a fruitful conversation, and now I will hand over to our facilitator, Mbali Pengu. Let's engage.
Thank you so much, Mbalenhle. A very, very, very good morning to all the viewers across the world today. Thank you so much for joining us for this beautiful reconciliation roundtable discussion that is being hosted by the National Arts Council South Africa. So I want to acknowledge all viewers, especially those joining via Zoom, and as well as our Facebook audience members. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Mbali Pengu, and I'm the official moderator for today. So I will have an opportunity to introduce myself properly, but as per Mbalenhle has initiated to us or told us, I would also like to just go through a few protocols for the day. The first one is, let's keep it organic. So let's have fun, let's have a good conversation, but please also do engage with us as well. So there will be an official Q&A session right at the end, and we'll give you an opportunity to express and talk to us. The second one is, I know that some of the conversation points are going to be equally exciting, but we are requesting that you keep the conversation aligned to the topic for today. So if there are any other initiatives, such as the presidential stimulus program that you want to talk about, please, I am requesting that you send those queries and concerns to the respective people that you have to send them to. And then number three, because we are in conversations with numerous stakeholders that are joining us today, let's be mindful of comments and insights. So let's keep it clean, professional, and encouraging for all of us. Now, I'm not alone today. I am with some industry gurus, some beautiful, beautiful people who have decided to join me as part of the panelists. And of course, there are arts and culture practitioners. And they will be eagerly contributing towards today's discussion under the theme or topic, the role of the arts in nation building, exploring the impact of arts in advancing social cohesion, addressing social ills, and supporting reconciliation. Quite a mouthful, but very important topic that we must get through today. So today our theme is aligned to reconciliation, making things right. And I think before we get into the crux of it all, perhaps let me take a breather because I've been told that I must introduce myself properly. I wear many hats. So one of them is moderator for today. But for those that do not know me, I am also a lecturer. I'm also a speaker and I'm based in Cape Town. I also have a book for entrepreneurs that I published in 2020 called Selfish, Mastering Self in a Selfish Business World. And my second book will hopefully be launched next year, which gears Gen Z marketing. In my speaker capacity, I have graced many stages. So I'm quite blessed and privileged for that opportunity, some of them being Nedbank IMC, Marketing Management, Institute of Marketing Management in Malawi, as well as Namibia, which is coming up next year. So I hope that I do justice to today's session. And of course, let's try and keep the conversation going and let's be relaxed and let's be human first and experts later. So now that I've introduced myself, I would love to hand over to our first panelist because they also must introduce themselves. And I have said she is a young, savvy CEO and actress. So please, let's give it up for Naledi Mfolo to introduce herself to the audience. Thank you, Naledi.
Hello, everyone. Firstly, thank you so much for this opportunity. Thank you to the National Arts Council. My name is Naledi Mfolo, and I am a storyteller at heart. I was born and raised in Johannesburg. I work across theater, film, and journalism using storytelling as a way to really reflect who we are, where we come from, and where we are going as Africans. I am trained in live performance and film, and over the years, I've had the privilege of really working both in front and behind the camera, you know, as an actress, as a director, as a producer, and a journalist. So I do also think that no matter the medium, really, my work is driven by intention. It's driven by honesty and really a true desire to tell stories that challenge, that connect, and move people. I've always been really deeply passionate about also youth empowerment and the access to the arts, you know, which then led me to found the Young People Creative Forum, which is a nonprofit organization that is focused on nurturing emerging talent. I believe that storytelling is not just a entertainment as people would like to think that it is, but it is a tool for social reflection. It is a tool for healing and transformation. And for me, everything that I do is rooted in a commitment to really tell authentic African narratives and use my voice and my craft to contribute meaningfully to cultural and social landscape. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, Naledi. That's absolutely amazing. Second panelist, an activist who is centered on cultural identity, introducing Mr. Jeffrey Hartzenberg. Please do go ahead, sir, and introduce yourself.
Tavetes, everybody, or greetings. My name is Jeffrey Hatzenberg from Klapmuts, a small rural village near Stellenbosch in the Cape Winelands in the Western Cape. I'm a poet, mostly on spoken word poetry, a performing artist, and I also use my social media platforms to enshrine to show people what's wording and also give also Khoikhoi words in it to make people aware or to give the kana or consciousness to people that the Khoikhoi, the language, our language is what is rooted, which is our norma or our root that define us as people. And also, I also include in my Khoikhoi activism and posts that I work on social media. I also include pictures of before colonization of Khoi people, and also I also with the post pics, I also with the post it's aligned with it to make people aware that because most times people get bored with a long post, but the pictures tell stories. And also that is also why also into visual arts because pictures tell 1,000 stories. And also I'm also a founding member of the Khoikhoi Arts Council, which is aligned and designed to be there for Khoikhoi artists, film, theater, poetry, etc. For as we know, many people try to exploit artists, and we do that to say that where's artists we don't want to have. It's like they say in Afrikaans, ons wil nie vir niet werkie. And that is the purpose of the Khoikhoi Arts Council to make sure that Khoikhoi artists are protected and also that the sustainability is there to show that we as artists, this is our work, it's our living, it is what we do, it's what defines us as artists and also to also with our language, culture, and heritage, we do it to make people aware. And also, I also give Khoikhoi language classes and also go to the local library in primary school to teach kids and people in the broader community about Khoikhoi as a language and what is our cultural stuff and so on. Thank you.
Excellent, excellent. Language as a cultural expression. Beautiful. Third panelist, and the one phrase that I could find to introduce her, a phoenix that continues to rise. Ladies and gentlemen, let's hear it up for Tina Leroux.
Good morning, everybody. What an honor it is to be here. My name is Tina. I'm a theatre lighting designer, which basically means that I work at that beautiful intersection where art and technology and humanity work and create stories that need to be told in this country. My career has taken me across stages and stories, and I'm really fortunate to have received awards in recognition of that. But beyond those accolades, I carry another role that is deeply personal for me as a gender activist committed to fighting a more safe and accountable creative spaces. My work in theatre and my work in activism came from the same impulse, this idea of shining light onto a story that needs to be told. That's often left in the shadows, that we need to make space for those voices that have been historically overlooked or silenced, whether that's in gender or in language access or in employment for young people. I come today to the conversation not just as an artist, but as a woman who's lived with those realities that we are going to discuss. Someone who believes that reconciliation and healing and justice are not just abstract ideas, that the daily practices that shape our communities, our workspaces, and our futures we're building for young people in South Africa can come from a place as small as a little theatre production, because that theatre production holds a space for a story that hasn't yet been told, and a story that, in terms of healing, we need to be able to listen to. I'm grateful to sit at this table and to explore how we can move forward with honesty and creativity and commitment to change. So thank you very much for having me.
Thank you so much, Tina. That's so beautiful. And our final panelist, combining creative arts with education and mentorship. Let's hear it for Zeko, the poet, Tugani.
Good day, everyone, and thank you to the National Arts Council for this invitation. My name is Teko Tugani. I'm a trained theater practitioner. I'm a storyteller, I'm a playwright and creative director who believes deeply in the role of the arts in healing, confronting truth, and rebuilding the fabric of our society. I'm also a founder of the Gallant's House Productions, which is based in Bloemfontein, and it's a hub for creative writing and performing arts. So my work operates at the intersection of memory, identity, and including both personal and social transformation. So through pieces like Dear Son, a letter from my absent mother, Memento Mori, which reminds us about the passing of time, and Section 56, The Advocate's Duty, I use theater, poetry, and movement to open conversations about the wounds we inherit, the silences we live with, and the responsibilities we share in shaping a more human future. So right now, I'm on a significant creative journey. I'm developing and staging new works that engage questions of identity, absence, justice, and reconciliation. And Dear Son, which is one of my works has recently been selected for the State Theatre's Youth Expression Festival. And I'm also preparing for its first performances here in Bloemfontein and in the early January next year. And then at the same time, Section 56 is expanding my practice into legal drama and mystery, a space where I explore truth, trauma, and accountability through a new lens. So this season of my career is one of growth and expansion. I'm building partnerships, applying for national and international programs, and deepening my work beyond the stage into advocacy and community engagement. So for me, artists are not just creatives. We are facilitators of dialogue and custodians of stories that carry the power to shift mindset and bring communities closer. So if there's one thing theater has taught me, that people do not heal in isolation. We heal when our stories are seen. We heal when it's acknowledged, and when spaces like this invite us to listen to one another honestly. And I've witnessed the power of shared emotional experience to soften walls, build bridges, and that is why I'm honored to be part of this conversation today. And thank you for having me. I look forward to contributing to this important dialogue on reconciliation, social cohesion, and nation building.
Thank you so much, Teko. That's absolutely excellent. So I'm sure everyone can agree that we have got probably the cream of the crop when it comes to arts and culture, as well as the industry giants that are here today, who are going to be representing some of the views and the insights that we must share with everyone today. So earlier on, I mentioned the aspects of reconciliation. I know that we are all, and I stand to be corrected, everyone here is South African, so we are deep in December mode. But there is a reconciliation aspect of it, a very important one, and this month really actually celebrates that, especially this specific roundtable. So perhaps the first question is, let us hear from the panelists. And let's talk about, what does reconciliation mean in today's South Africa, especially for future generations? I think let's talk about that organically. Let's talk about it from our own personal experiences, our perspectives. What does reconciliation actually mean for you? And how do you link it up to future generations? So I will prompt each panelist as we go along. Tina, would you like to give it a go?
Thank you so much. Absolutely. Gosh, reconciliation for me means a whole lot of things. It isn't just a single moment or a gesture, and it's definitely not all of us holding hands, yeah? And well, there's place for that. But in terms of being courageous, it's an ongoing and lived commitment to be courageous for me. And that is the courage to face our history honestly, but also the discipline to build new ways of relating to each other that aren't rooted in fear or silence or power imbalances. And my work in theatre and the privilege of telling stories in theatre has really given me insight into that. Reconciliation for me means recognizing that harm that was done and harm that continues whether it's gender-based violence or inequality or invisible wounds that people carry. It's refusing to pretend that these things are finished business because it's happened to you. You know, in South Africa, we always say, oh, well, so glad you survived. Yeah, that's no longer okay. We need to be telling those stories because those stories carry trauma, and trauma can heal when other people listen to our stories. So reconciliation also means imagining something better for the future generations amongst us, in creating a country where young people don't inherit our traumas, only our lessons, where justice isn't delayed, where dignity isn't conditional, where they grow up knowing the difference and that it's not a threat, and that their voices, no matter who they are, where they come from, belong in every room. That's the nature of our beautiful democracy, isn't it?
Absolutely.
As somebody who works in the arts, I think reconciliation is about storytelling, where stories get told, where voices get heard, and who gets to feel seen. Future generations deserve a South Africa where stories are told truthfully and generously, not making the past pretty, talking genuinely and openly about what has gone wrong so that we don't hand that trauma over to the next generation. And where we hold each other accountable, but with compassion and empathy. For me, reconciliation isn't about closing a book. It's about rewriting the next chapter, telling the next story with intention, honesty, and a sense of shared responsibility. Thank you.
Fantastic, Tina. I love how you speak about it as an ongoing commitment. So it's not just an on and off button. It's something that we are accountable for, correct?
Absolutely. And also accountability for all of us in our neighborhoods, in our work practices, in our communities down the road, you know, checking in with your elderly neighbor, checking in with the children in your road. Yeah, so that it's not just an isolation, oh, I only do this at work. Yeah, I do this throughout my life practices, because if each South African does this, we transform the world we live in.
Absolutely, absolutely. Thank you so much, Tina, for that. Naledi, do you want to give it a go? Ladies first.
I think I share the very same sentiments with Miss Tina. I believe from my perspective, you know, in today's South Africa, we cannot simply, reconciliation cannot simply mean getting along, you know, or pretending that the past no longer matters. You know, that version of reconciliation was designed to create comfort and not really get justice from it. So for the future generations, I believe that reconciliation should mean the truth without softening. It should mean accountability without vengeance. And it should really mean that we repair without denial, you know. More than anything, I think it's about acknowledging that inequalities in young people still exist and we inherit it today. You know, we see it in land ownership, we've seen it in education, in opportunities. You know, these are not accidental, but they are the direct outcomes of our history. And young people today, speaking for myself, are growing up with the language of reconciliation, but we're still inheriting inequality. You know, we're still inheriting unresolved trauma. And that contradiction in itself tells us that reconciliation, as it has been practiced, was truly incomplete. You know, I believe that true reconciliation should enable future generations to live with dignity, to live with opportunity, you know, to live with the historical clarity and not confusion and not inherited frustration. So without addressing the power, without addressing the access, and without addressing the belonging, reconciliation becomes performance. You know, it doesn't really become transformational.
Yeah. And I love what you're saying when you say it becomes a performative outcome as opposed to something that we should all actually be sitting down and saying, these are the layers of trauma. This is what we inherited and what can we do? So that's absolutely powerful. Thank you for that. Teko, you're on mute, Teko.
Sorry about that. Yes, so before I answer, I want to speak from a personal place because reconciliation and unity are not theories. They are lived experiences that shape the stories that I tell. So reconciliation and nation building are not ideas that sit in documents. They are things I've had to confront in my own life and in my work as a storyteller. So we all know that we come from a country where pain is often inherited, where silence becomes a burden, and where many of us grew up searching for a sense of belonging. So through my plays and poetry, I learned that people don't heal in isolation. People don't heal alone. We heal when we share, when we listen, and when we see our experiences reflected with dignity. So I've watched audiences who come from completely different worlds sit in the same room and feel the same emotion at the same moment. So in that space, you realize that there is something powerful. There is more that connects us than what divides us. So that is why I believe so deeply in the arts. They give us a way to confront the truth without violence. They give us language for the things we struggle to say. They allow us to imagine a South Africa where we are not afraid of each other, but rather curious about each other. So when I speak about reconciliation, unity, and healing, I speak as someone who has seen what story can do, not just on stage, but in the heart of people.
I absolutely love that. You mentioned something so important about curiosity. And I've actually made a note. I've said, curiosity killed the cat, but it can also heal, right? Through us wanting to know what the next person went through, that's an opportunity for us to work together. I'm going to ask you to hold the thought concerning how art and how storytelling has managed to contribute towards healing, because that's actually our next topic. So I can't wait to hear what you have to say. But thank you so much, Teko. Jeffrey.
Kaise Gangan, so thank you. In my opinion, reconciliation is a very difficult term to use. It is more to me like a pipe dream, but as a collective to work on it, South Africans also saying what reconciliation is difficult. It's just a term, it's just words, but no action. Also, what we also must remember is that we still need to reconcile, because as Khoi people, we make sense of what makes sense, especially Khoi as a language or Kuvas is a language that is rooted in intelligence, community, and land. Southern Africa and South Africa. It also can also have to Mukui acknowledge the fact that Khoi has also brought the Tswatsas or the Stats to many of other African languages in Southern Africa, because the Midisau vocabulary of Khoi is powerful, and it's also many wordings that is root from Khoi, the norm of. So, in my opinion, it's just difficult. So, we need to work on that, because it's now we have now a constitution for 28 years, if I'm not mistaken, and there's no reconciliation, which means no action or deeds has been done. It's just words. So, yeah, a pipe dream that it's difficult to define, but we need to work on.
And thank you so much for your honesty, Jeffrey, because essentially we love to speak about the word reconciliation, and it sounds fancy, but what does it actually mean? And Teko said something very important earlier: a collective expression or a joint effort in terms of building what needs to be done. Which, of course, then takes me to the next question. The topic for today is arts as a nation building, which I think is quite a heavy ask if you think about it. We've just told the audience today how difficult reconciliation is, how the inheritance of trauma has still evolved right? And it's still ongoing in our society. But then let's talk about the arts as a nation building initiative or a manifesto or whatever it might be that you might see it as. How do we see the arts contributing towards this national project of healing and unity? I know we spoke tentatively about it when we mentioned aspects such as storytelling and using some of the mediums that we're exposed to share our insights. But if we unpack it and talk about it from a greater perspective, the work or the industry of arts, how does that fit in and contribute towards nation building? So this time I'm going to go in reverse. So I'll start with, who am I going to start with? Jeffrey again. Jeffrey, are you ready?
Yes, I'm ready.
Fantastic.
Art is a very powerful tool to express yourself and to make sense of your situation in you as a country or even as an individual. For me personally, as an artist, how art is powerful is that when I feel like trying to be creative, I take out my Khoi dictionary and just browse through it and look at the meaning or words. And that is tourism or self-healing. And then your creative juices flow because then you know I'm using now the words of my Abugano ancestors that was heard long before colonization. The words that is rooted with the land, with the nature, with animals, water, everything, because Khoi was people that was in what enshrined and intertwined with nature. The clicks is everything, so that is just powerful with sounds and everything. And when you get it and you find the word, and the creative comes flowing, it flows because then you know, okay, now, because that is what you said, Bali, in the beginning about identity in art. That is for me. So yeah, that is what makes it powerful for me. There are times when you just feel down and you just take your dictionary and go through the words of the ngam or the tongue of your Abugano ancestors, then you just know this is powerful. We are Khoi people were and still is actually people that are artists. Arts is in our veins from our ancestors to now still. Thank you.
And Jeffrey, thank you so much for that insight, because when you speak of language, especially the Khoisan language, and how you're using that as a form of cultural expression, what has happened, especially from a South African context, looking at the history of South Africa, apartheid, language in itself has also been stripped away. We've lost the sense of language as a true sense of cultural identity and expression. And so in your capacity, and I want you to just talk a bit more about what are some of the challenges that you have faced in terms of you working with and using language as a cultural expression. I know some people might not, take it to heart what you're doing, and they might not consider it. What are the potential roadblocks so far that you've faced in your respective specialty?
Some struggles and roadblocks is that many times we can all see, and that is also part of reconciliation. As we can see in the news and so on, the so-called bill of the Khoi people that is trying to be promulgated. How, if you do your work, and many times it's not that you try to badmouth people, but in many instances people try to, you must prove your authenticity of what you do. But in hindsight, I just say, but look, what I do, it's not that I say it's just about me, because Khoi work is a collective thing. It's not individual of I, me, and I. It's about we and us. That is what it. But in many times you get that, like I said in the beginning, that people try to deter you, but in that is also the challenge that we sit with. Stop. If you try to reconcile, don't let people prove that they are Khoi or prove that they are authentic in what they do, because what you do as an artist, that reflects who you are and what you do, because art is a form of expression, and it's wording, it's visual arts, it's deeds that show people that this is what we are, this is what I do, this is what collective does. It's not about trying to pretend to do something out of own gain. No, that is not what it is. So if we want to speak about art as reconciliation, be empathetical to a person that does the work. But on the other hand, it's quite good. Many people in the community, and even when I go to the library and collaborate with the school, I can see that we are going somewhere because many kids, when you walk in the street, they can recognize you and tell the parents or family members that that's that uncle that teaches us about the koi, about the language, about what the history is, and he uses pictures and form interaction and participation to make us aware about who and what we are. So yeah, so uh, although these challenges are there that I mentioned, there is also positive reviews. Thank you.
Excellent. Teko, to you.
All right. Thank you once again. So I've learned that the arts have a unique way of making us human to one another. You know, before we debate, before we analyze, before we try to convince each other, art allows us to feel. And sometimes feeling is the first step towards understanding. So when you sit in a theater or listen to a poem or watch a performance, for a moment you enter someone else's world. So you feel the weight of their story, their rhythm, the rhythm of their heart. That emotional access point creates the kind of unity that laws, strategies, and speeches cannot force. And for example, on the work that I'm working on, which is Dear Son, a letter from my absent father. For me, on my side, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Oh, yes. On my side, my father passed on when I was 8 years. Yeah? And then there are other kids who their fathers left them. You know, when you talk about deadbeat fathers and all those, we are sharing the very same experience. We are inheriting the very same wounds. So how do we then come together and talk about the very same challenges? Different situation, but the challenges are the same. So that helps to build unity from the inside out. So by stopping wars, by creating shared experiences, by reminding us that beneath our differences, we all long for the same things, which is dignity, which is belonging and hope. So in that way, the arts don't just entertain us, they introduce us to ourselves and to each other. And that is where unity begins.
Excellent. The whole aspect of introducing ourselves to ourselves, that whole thing of being able to reconnect, whether it's through language, whether it's through a poem, whether it's through music. So I absolutely love that. And I think we must just come back later on in our conversation and definitely unpack what that looks like. Naledi?
Hi. I think it's no secret that the arts has always been a way us as South Africans tell the truth, you know, especially when the politics cannot, you know, if we think of things like your protest theater, you know, our struggle songs, art has always given us permission to feel, to remember, to question, and to imagine, you know, and healing does not begin with policy. It begins with the recognition, and the arts makes people feel visible, you know, it makes people feel seen, especially people who have been silenced or have been erased. The unity part of it does not come from pretending that we are the same, but it comes from understanding that we each have each other's lived realities, you know, and the arts then becomes that bridge in between, where there's the lived experiences and there's where people feel visible and seen.
Yes. Wow. And, you know, looking at the current context of South Africa, you spoke about struggle songs just now, and how that is used as a medium of reflection and, you know, allowing yourself to be seen. Just not so long ago, we were all involved in 50 minutes of silence for gender-based violence victims. And that in itself was, and I don't want to downplay it, but that in itself became almost a sense of urgency and a sense of art, if you think about it. That entire experience was us women and also some men putting up their hands and saying, it's now time, we need to be seen. And even if you look at some of the visuals that were used, billboards, social media became something that was used as a tool of expression. So art is no longer all of a sudden in a theater. It is everywhere, it's around us. And it is inadvertently every day waking up and looking at ways in which we can give ourselves permission to be seen. So I absolutely love that, Naledi. Tina?
Hello. I think that the conversations around national healing in South Africa are more complicated than we can acknowledge in many spaces. And that's the power of art, to create those spaces where we can start to kind of pick away the layers. Yeah. It's emotional work. The arts are one of the few spaces where it can happen safely and collectively and without judgment. Yeah. I particularly find that theatre practice gives people with trauma, with history of trauma, a place to talk or place to engage or place to listen without re-traumatizing them.
Sure.
And that's really important for people like gender-based violence survivors, survivors of political unrest in this country, because we do come from a country of lots of trauma. And the beauty about the practice of art in this country is that it creates spaces where we can grieve together. It's not always about a celebration because we've overcome. You can't get to a celebration unless you've grieved the past, in my opinion. So with a country with so much layered loss and communal grieving and loss of language and loss of identity and loss of ability to speak back to power, I think that where we can have things like memorial performances, songs of mourning, exhibitions that honor the dead, the past that we've come from, narratives that include collective wounds. Healing begins with allowing us to say, this has hurt me.
Sure.
Yeah, this has hurt me. And how can we change this so that the next generation is not hurt by the same thing?
You know, you mentioned something so interesting earlier. You said art should not or something along the lines of re-traumatize, and I got that written down. I do sometimes feel that it does sort of prod and trigger you, even when you feel you've healed. You watch a movie, you see a specific scene, or there are words that are said, and then your mind tells you, I'm actually not okay. And sometimes art is able to bring that. Do you agree with that, or?
I do agree with that. I do a lot of work in my own career with a company called Empatheater, and they frame the stories that we are listening to. Sometimes it's about environmental issues. Sometimes it's about political issues. And they frame those stories with a Q&A afterwards, which allows the safety of it after having watched the theatre production and perhaps you're triggered to contextualize that for yourself so that you don't leave that space carrying more trauma, that you in fact have left that space where others have heard you and seen you.
Absolutely, absolutely. So arts as a nation building, and I want us to then explore that. What does nation building look like? Because 31 years into democracy and we're still faced with racial and class division, inequality and employment. There are still many, many complex matters that are being exposed to us on a day-to-day basis. I want us to take a step back and bring it down to a practical level, because as artists, we have an obligation, and that obligation is to empower, to bring attention to teach, to mentor. I want us to talk about our work that we are doing. And please feel free, to make reference to your own work, ways in which you personally, and I know some of you may have touched base on this, ways in which you have addressed or done everything in your power to mitigate the social issues of unemployment, cultural and racial divides. And, this is where you can show off. You're allowed. It's totally allowed to show off and to tell us exactly what it is that you as a practitioner are doing. Because now we're aware art is a very important subject when it comes to nation building, and we can use it. But what are we each doing? So I'll start off with Teko. Teko, are you okay? Mike? Are you all right? I think Teko, we can pause on him for a bit. Let's go on down to Jeffrey.
Personally, poetry has helped
Can you
me
hear me?
to let people see me for beyond being a colored person. As we all know, what is the stigma of how people perceive colored people in South Africa? That colored people are drunkards, gangsters, no hopers, and everything. But poetry and performing arts and spoken word and written storytelling has also learned me about what Khoikhoi is all about, the person of people or the mens, people that are not, and also what that as poetry, the words in Khoikhoi, it humbles you because it was rooted in humbleness. That is why Khoikhoi is the people of people. So for me, like I said, when penning down your thoughts about what you are and what identity is all about with poetry, that makes you see that now, man, this whole construct of a system that is designed to gaslight you of what you are that you aren't. So for me, for an honest critical dialogue to see people outside themselves, we need to challenge the stereotypes as a country that we have about each other. Because, like you said in Bali, social media is also a tool now how people can express their views, but also people use the stereotypes about what we see as different tribal people. I don't want to word tribal in a sense that to downgrade, but tribe because tribe is what is your strength, what you are rooted in, who you are. Like the Khoi people that is divided in different tribes. Also, is it Xhosa, is it Zulu, so on. So yeah, and that is also for what stereotypes you said about what a Xhosa person, what a Khoi or a colored person is. That is the critical dialogue that we need to have to address. How are we going to be reconciled and give social cohesion, and also how is this going to stop, because it's a problematic thing to stereotype a person about who you are and what you are.
And stereotyping them based on language, and not really valuing their cultural identity. That in itself is a problem. So thank you for that. Teko, are you back?
Yes, I'm here now.
Fantastic.
Sorry about that. So I believe that art is one of the few places where complexity is allowed to breathe. You know, when you present a character or story that refuses simple labels, the audience is forced to rethink the assumptions they came in with. So art interrupts the easy narrative, and that interruption is powerful. So when people create together across race, age, culture, or class, something transformative happens. They form relationship they wouldn't have formed anywhere else. So you move from us, you move from them, and then we become a we. So collaboration itself, it becomes a bridge. And once that bridge is built, belonging follows naturally in shared creations and not just shared spaces. So we strengthen collective belonging not by ignoring our differences, but by creating spaces where those differences can meet, be explored, and be respected. So yeah, I'd say you are seen, you are heard, and you are part of the story, and that is deeply powerful foundation for belonging. I'm not sure if I'm on the right track because of the cut that happened here. But
Absolutely.
yeah, that was my point.
Fantastic. I just wanted to also ask you, Teko, you seem to have done many projects concerning the youth empowerment. Could you perhaps share some of those? I know you are in the middle of a very important project. What have you done and how have you used art to potentially address unemployment or anything of that nature, cultural, racial divides, any of the social ills that we are facing? And I know you've done a lot. You've got your own company that you're doing, yes. I've researched.
Working with young people and with I always refer to this the show that I'm working on because I focus mainly on this what do you call it? There's this thing take a girl child to work.
Yes.
So I'm focusing on this young neglected male kids and all that. So that the narrative that I would like to put to the people that neglecting a boy child is the same as destroying the nation. So how do we then balance the equation when you're building this one and neglecting this one? How we then get to live together in one space? So I'm not focusing only on a male child, but I'm trying to bring people to this a platform of saying, let us not neglect a boy child.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Absolutely. And that's an important conversation where we focus on females and the girl child, but there are still some complexities and silent issues that we don't really talk about when it comes to the male child as well.
Exactly.
So that's fantastic. Tina, would you like to give it a go?
Yes, thank you, Mbali. There's actually a question that I've been reading in the comments where Tami Mbongo says, are artists pressured to produce reconciliation-friendly work? And I'd like to respond to that if possible in regards to my own work. Yes. As a survivor of trauma in this country, I've made the very clear decision to not feel pressurized to create work. If I'm creating work, it needs to be because it tells a story that matters. It tells a story that is going to somehow make my next week, 3 weeks, slightly better from what I have come from. Yeah. And that is a very conscious decision to make my neighborhood and my community better. And I think when we're pressurized, there might be pressurizing kind of frameworks in terms of receiving funding to make work, I imagine. But when you start to create work that really matters to your soul and you can see the difference in your own community, that's when I really believe in this ability of theatre and art to change our country. I do it in a couple of ways. So if I can just go through that. First of all, as a lighting designer, I really try, as a female lighting designer, there are very few in this country. I try to encourage other young women to come into the industry and to show them that it's not a scary male-dominated space, that actually the men that I've encountered, maybe I've been fortunate, in my workspace have been nothing but supportive. That not everybody is always out to get you. Yeah, that sometimes you just need to stand up and go, I can lie down and take what's happened to me, or I can change the world. Maybe it's just in a tiny little way, but if I don't change the world, then it's as bad as it was when I was attacked or when I experienced my trauma. And I refuse to stay there. The second part of relating my work to, how do we make this country better, is to use what I know technically to create a tool for empathy and argument. Yeah, because lighting is kind of this abstract thing until you start wiring it all together. Yeah, but without lighting, we don't tell stories in theatre. We need to use lighting to center marginalized voices, create emotional access points for audiences so that you might not fully understand what you're coming to see, but that maybe I've challenged you just a little bit to go home and think about your world as slightly differently. And then the last thing that I do, besides mentoring and besides the craft of my work, is that I actively choose to bring children to theatre. And that was not only children who have survived horrific trauma in their lives, but also just children, as in young people, come and watch stories. Yeah, come and watch stories, because maybe if you're a child of trauma, it can give you your childhood back just for an afternoon, and you can laugh and be a kid again. I bring children from the National Prosecuting Authority in Pinetown, children who've testified in court, to watch a theatre production. It's as simple as that. I'm not changing their world in any drastic way, but for the 3 hours of storytelling that they come and watch a children's theatre production for, I go, for 3 hours, you've not thought about your trauma. And that's been the biggest part of my own personal healing.
That's fantastic. That's a very, very powerful statement and powerful work that you're doing, Tina. And we will be dissecting it, in the next question that I'm going to pose. I do have one for Naledi, which is actually from Tammy. So, depending on how you feel, you can answer it, Naledi, and of course, then you can tell us also what you're doing as an artist perspective. So, Naledi, the one question is: can a nation truly heal when forgiveness is expected from victims, but accountability is optional for perpetrators? And Tammy posed a very powerful question there. How do we confront this imbalance honestly? Maybe you can, answer it from an arts perspective or from a personal perspective. Yeah.
Sorry, can you please repeat that question again?
Alrighty. Yes, it says, can a nation truly heal when forgiveness is expected from victims, but accountability is optional for the perpetrator? Can we really, really heal? Because we keep talking about reconciliation and arts as a nation building, but this is a complex imbalance that we have. And how do we as artists address this imbalance? I know that we can use arts as a platform, and perhaps you can give us your thoughts.
Yeah.
If it's something that you are willing to do. Can we really heal when forgiveness is expected from the victim, but accountability is almost optional for the perpetrator?
I mean, the truth of the matter is that we can't, art can only be used as a tool for conversation, but it can't really change the issues and the complexities that we're already dealing with as a society, art works because it meets people where they are, and it opens conversations that we're often maybe too scared or we're too tired to have, it gives survivors of violence a way to speak without shame, and really does help young people find purpose. But it cannot really be the change that we want, because change can only start when we confront the truth. Change can only start when we truly sit with ourselves. And I believe, yes, art is a tool, but it cannot change our society. It can help amplify the movement, like things like the gender-based violence that you were speaking about earlier, that whole movement that happened, right? That was art in itself, but it cannot be the catalyst, the only catalyst for change.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And in terms of my work in the media and storytelling, I think my work is always centered around Africa and Africans and just the diasporic perspective, and really doing that with clarity and honesty. I recently directed a play called Echoes of Silence, and that was a body of work that really brought conversations that us as the Black community really shy away from speaking about. And it was a conversation that says, here it is, let's confront it and let's speak about it. Things like LGBTQI plus, things like gender-based violence, things like mental health. Those are issues that we don't speak about in our Black communities. And the response to my work from the people that came to watch it just truly shows me that people across all generations are really hungry for the truth, you know, and not only truth, but truth that is framed with intention more than anything. Yeah.
Excellent, fantastic. Teko, you had your hand up. Did you want to say?
No, it's okay.
That was something else. All right. Fantastic. I love how every single practitioner here has made it a part of their life, not just to make art as a hobby, but to also address some social ills. And it's very, very important that we keep that in mind as practitioners in this respective field. So as a marketer and as someone who also does marketing, advertising, and comms, I know that storytelling is a very important part, whether you see it through an advert, commercial, whether you see it through some movie or you read about it in a book. Empathy becomes a qualifier as to how people can remember your work. So all of a sudden, it's about producing work that is empathy driven. And I want us to explore that, because potentially if we can explore that and talk about it, we might just be giving some hints and tips to other filmmakers or storytellers out there who can really make some of the messaging stick in the minds of the audience. So yes, empathy, I am a big fan of it because, you know, it's the one quality driver and the one brand innovation driver. So the question then is, what role does storytelling, and if we look at storytelling through the following mediums of music, theater, film, or visual arts, what role does storytelling play in promoting empathy in South Africa? Yes. Tina, let's go for you.
Thank you. I am a very strong advocate of theatre that comes from a place of empathy, because the very act of coming to watch a theatre production is by nature that you have 100, 150 or 200 people who do not know each other, who have maybe one idea about why they're coming to watch the show. And if I can do it empathetically and create a work that tells not just one perspective of the gender inequality struggle in this country, but that can show the story of the policeman involved, the prosecutor involved, the child survivor involved, the parents of that child survivor. Suddenly you have multiple voices that have come empathetically into one place, that I can begin as an audience member to start to go, I hadn't thought about that. I hadn't thought that trauma impacts more than just the survivor. I hadn't thought that, gosh, the prosecutor goes home at night and is unable to sleep. Yeah. All of those things allow us to look at those conversations slightly differently and to leave those places going, how do I change my community now? How do I bring that idea into what I'm doing every day in my daily practice? That is gender informed, that is trauma informed, that allows people to have a space to be heard.
I love that, Tina. Naledi, I see you agreeing a lot. Do you perhaps want to chip in and share your insights as to how we can address or use storytelling and invoke some form of empathy so that our messages can stick?
I mean, storytelling through music, through theater, is very powerful because it touches people in a way that nothing else really can. You know, it moves us from just really debating about the issues to actually feeling them. I mean, in South Africa, we carry heavy histories. You know, we carry heavy histories of pain, of division, of resistance, of survival, you know, and when those stories are told through songs, when those stories are told through theater, through performances, through images, they become human. You know, I mean, music, for instance, can instantly take us back to a moment, you know, a memory, a feeling that we all recognize, you know, even if our lives look completely different from the next person that's sitting next to me. And theater also as a tool allows us to sit in the lives of other people, you know, to laugh with them, like Tina said, to hurt with them. And sometimes, as uncomfortable as that is to truly see them, the visual arts of it really often speaks quietly, but it forces us to reflect on stories that we might otherwise walk past every day, you know. And I think what the arts does so beautifully is slow us down as humans. You know, it creates a space for listening, you know, for listening, not only listening, but listening without interpretation, without defensiveness. You know, a story on stage or in a song doesn't argue with you. If anything, it invites you in, you know, and once you've connected emotionally with it, it becomes harder to really dismiss someone else's pain or reality.
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
and that's how empathy grows more than anything, you know. That's when we really begin to realize that while our backgrounds and our languages and our race is different, but the humanity aspect of it is shared in that, you know. Yeah.
Jeffrey, I see that you were eagerly putting your hand up there, and I also have a counter almost a question, but go for it.
I wanted to say about the empathy that you're talking about in theater, in film and visual arts and music. My thing is to fashion as a koi artist, it's important to Kakasan to have it in your Nasi Huvahu or indigenous language, because that brings the authenticity to the play, to the film and whatever. Even if we do our traditional dance, the real dance, if you don't do it in your Nasi Huvahu, then there is no heart or spirituality in it, because if you, the empathy lies in your tongue, your mother tongue. And if you don't do it in that, then there's no meaning in it, because you connect with your Abukano ancestors, and also it gives your audience a broader perspective to see that you are doing it authentically. And we say we're in South Africa, we're in Africa, but how can you express in the colonizer's tongue your performing arts, your visual arts, your film and theater, but we tend to forget our indigenous languages.
Exactly. Very important point, and something that we need to take into consideration, because sometimes we tend to resonate more with the medium that is expressed in our own language. And that's something that we should not shy away from. What I did want to ask, and I'm hearing the sentiments come through, and perhaps Teko, you can answer this one, is, does it have to be empathetic though? Isn't art meant to be disruptive and chaotic, you know? And if it is disruptive and chaotic, is it still not going to have the same stickiness in the audience's mind? Or does it have to gear towards empathy? Perhaps you can just talk about that, Teko, as a practitioner, what you've probably observed in the field. Can it not be chaotic? Just doing a spin kick here.
I'm not sure about being chaotic, but also I'm not sure chaotic in which sense.
In which
but
sense?
I want, yeah, but I also want to go back to what Naledi was saying. You know, whether through storytelling, or I think storytelling is the doorway into another person's world. You know, I think also this one will answer your question. This is also something I wanted to talk about when I was raising my hand. There's a movement. There's a movement that I started earlier, I think around 2022, 2023, which I was calling it Dinner with a Street Kid. Dinner with a Street Kid as a movement where I would take us a random homeless person, go to a certain restaurant and have a meal. just have a conversation with the person, and hear about their interest and all that. And the initial plan behind that was to mentor them, bridge the gap between them and find someone who will mentor the person based on their interest. So I will take a few, bring them into the theater space, and just see where one can, excel on, and then transfer my skills to those people. So now you can imagine if they themselves can climb the stage and tell their own stories. Then I think the empathy, that's where it comes in. And yeah, so I think if they
I think we're losing Zeko a bit there. He will come back to us. Tina, go for it.
Thanks, Simbali. I just wanted to add on to that idea. Can theatre be
people and
disruptive?
all those things.
Oh, he's back.
Oh, he's back. Okay.
I'll wait.
Sorry, Zeko, are you back? We lost you there for a second.
Oh, yes. And then so it becomes a challenge to actually work on such cases when
oh yeah, we seem to keep losing him.
there is no support from the outside world and all that. I think that's the chaotic part you were talking about. Yeah.
I lost you there for a second, but I managed to get the gist of it. Thank you so much, Zeko, for that. Tina, yes, you wanted to counter.
Yes, I just wanted to say that I think it's absolutely possible for theatre to be disruptive and empathetic at the same time. When we go to theatre, by the very nature of telling South African stories, we're not telling stories that are comfortable. Yeah, whether it's historically or currently, even. And when we provide a platform that doesn't just tell one perspective, that tells an array of perspectives in a theatre production, we invite that audience member to be challenged through empathy and leave, hopefully, sometimes it's through humor. So the character says something funny on stage and we laugh about it, and we go home and we interrogate, why were we laughing? That's actually not funny. Yeah. And that is disruptive because we're inviting people in to see an uncomfortable topic necessarily, done in a way that is accessible. Otherwise, who's going to come and see a play about social ills? Let's be honest. We'd rather go to the movies and watch something, happy in this country. Yeah. But we're inviting people to come in. We're framing that dialogue that we want to engage our audience with in a way that is accessible and empathetic and shows multiple voices. So no one in that room is wrong, but perhaps we can leave going, oh, I didn't understand that other perspective. And I've been thinking about that. And in that way, I'm challenged as well. Thank you.
I love that. It can be disruptive and also empathetic as well. Jeffrey?
100%. 100%.
Yes.
On that topic about arts being disruptive, actually that is actually true, because mostly our work, especially Khoi work, is political. It addresses issues that is on a daily basis going on. We can still see how is it in Khoi communities we are still marginalized, our voices are being silenced, and it's like we are just forgotten. We are just seen as just nothing scholars, uitskot mense, or people that must be satisfied with leftovers. So arts is disruptive, and also it is also aligned with being political, because our work is political. It challenges political injustices, political stereotypes, and political means of ways that is seen that is right, that is actually wrong.
Excellent, Jeffrey, and thank you for bringing it back to to what you're currently experiencing in your respective capacity. Just a message that's coming through, it says that I must just prompt the attendees that they will be given a platform to ask questions. So if you could just prepare, and those that need to ask questions must please raise your hands, because we are trying to manage. There's a lot of insights and it's exciting, but let's give our beautiful panelists an opportunity. So reconciliation for future generation, that is something that we have been talking about since we started. But when I was unpacking this respective topic, I looked at future generation and youth. And if you look at it from a South African context, the youth / future generation, there are so many labels that we've placed on this respective, if I can say, category of audience. Maybe that's the correct way to say it. So what have we said? The youth, future generations are misunderstood, uncultured, problematic. If you look at the population of AMA 2000, as we all know from a South African context, they have their own forms of statements that have been imposed to them that might not necessarily be true. So we keep talking about how we're going to build and use art as a nation building. But at the end of the day, we also need to take into consideration that there are young people here that we also need to consistently think about and give them an opportunity to shine. I think one of the comments that was put on the chat from an attendee was, there's a lot of gatekeeping, right, in the arts and culture sector. How do we protect our young ones, and how do we allow them to shine in their own capacity? So the next question really is based on the youth once again, but it's also based on trends that are currently happening from a youth perspective. Let's look at it from a digital media perspective and technology. We've got AI in the chat. We have got Instagram. We have got Facebook. We've got TikTok. So how then can we use digital media and technology to amplify and extend this reach of reconciliation? Remember, the arts is now moving slowly away from theater. All of a sudden, youngsters are saying, why must I go into a theater hall or to a playhouse when I can just open TikTok and access the news and access what's happening out there? So I see Jeffrey's hand is up. Jeffrey, I'm going to come to you, but I just want to quickly go to Naledi. And I think she's got a lot to share.
I think the beauty of being really a techno-savvy generation is that, the digital platforms in itself allow art to cross borders, it's not just confined, like you're saying, it's not just confined to like a theater spaces, it's not just confined to our communities, but it crosses borders, it crosses languages, it crosses class barriers, social media in itself. Nowadays we have things like podcasts, we have things like digital exhibitions, and those things really ensure that reconciliation conversations are not confined to what the elite spaces, so to say. It's accessible to everyone now.
That's excellent. That's excellent. Are you finding it easier? Have you explored anything of that nature, where you're bringing your art space into a digital platform?
At the moment, no, but it is something that I'm trying to get into, especially like you said, with AI now dominating the space. Those are tools that we can use to amplify our voices in spaces like social media.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Naledi. Jeffrey, let's go on to you. You've been eagerly waiting.
What youth that always like I'm a 2000s, they say, using cell phones for the digital era that we're living in. In my opinion, as an artist, also having a diploma in marketing management, I also use social media as a tool to post my work in our collective work, like words and stuff, in certain dissecting of maybe a word in Khoi Khoi. and dissecting the meaning and how it is still going on in South Africa. And it's quite working because we can see it even when I go in the community to the library or to the community center. I can also see many young people are standing at Wi-Fi hotspots with their phones, and it's a win-win situation. And also, secondly, we need also people, and especially young people, to speak, because arts is about emotions. And if you box young people's emotions, then the negatives trigger in like substance abuse and stuff in GBF in the long run. So we also need to prioritize art centers in our communities, because young people are the future generations. Like the question is being asked and said that they are there to take this work forward as arts. And also now I see there's a niche also for identity, heritage and culture in arts. And I was last year or the year before that on that part about art centers and how the youth can take it forward in our communities. I was in Sandrift in the Richtersveld at my one friend of Namakoi Productions, and I could have seen when we were doing 1 till 7 December the National Khoikhoi Language Week, I could have seen how the young people, and especially small kids, how they are doing the traditional dances and singing and participating when the festival was going, when indigenous Namakoi music was played, the concertina, the guitars, and what, etc. And it's a win. And also, like I said in the beginning, I can see it also, kids are now very inquisitive in how they approach you when they know you do in the community these things. Then, like I said, it's not about me. It's about the collective and what we leave for future generations, the kumis or legacy. And it's happiness that you see in your heart and in your face when you hear the children say, there walks Uncle Koi Koi. The uncle that teaches Koi Koi, and there walks the man that teaches us. So yeah, it's a work in progress, but it's ongoing. But we need to build on that art centers to be strategically and straightforward in how to, not like aggressive, but powerfully to make sure that the future generations don't stand on the streets for doing idle things, because art centers, it's what defines us. And also arts must be also used in schools, and we as artists can also. But I wanted to speak on the other question that I see about the strategies, but that's for later when we speak about that. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Jeffrey, aka Uncle Koi Koi. Absolutely love that name. So what I will do for the sake of time, I don't know if you mind, Tina and Seko, is I'll ask you the next question concerning policy gaps, and then we will revert to Naledi and Jeffrey for how the NAC can better partner. So just for the sake of time, I want us to give everyone a chance to speak, and then we can move on to Q&A. So this one is directed to Tina and Seko. So what policy gaps? We cannot talk about reform, nation building, and not actually address policy gaps that are definitely evident from an arts and culture perspective. So you've got things like delayed fund commitments or confirmations. You've got limited marketing capacity. I think we might have a problem with the mic there. We've got shifting audience interest. So policy gaps, Tina, do you want to address this one? What could be policy gaps that are actually hindering this vision of using arts as a nation building tool?
And Vali, thank you. I think it's a very important question. In my work, I would advocate for a closer relationship between art practitioners and NGOs in that field. So in my field of gender-based violence, I would really advocate that you do theatre that is informed by real stories, by real people who work in those industries, that you don't just tick a box. Yeah, so the relationship between meeting an NGO and a theatre practitioner, and then going, how can we change the world? Because that place is more interesting than working in isolation, in going, what do I imagine survivors of trauma feel like? Let me go and speak to survivors of trauma. Let me ask for permission to tell their stories. Let me gather information from the people who work every day as the nurses taking the rape kits, people who work in the hospitals and the police stations gathering the statements. Get all of those stories into a room, because we can't just have a story about women talking women's stories in this field. You have to engage men. You have to get men to talk to men. The only way to do that is to link NGOs working in those fields with theatre practitioners wanting to tell those stories.
That's an excellent insight. Thank you, Tina. Teko? Your mic, Teko, your mic.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
Oh, thank you very much. I think our biggest challenge is that we treat transformation more like an event than a process. And we fund a once-off activations, and what we really need are long-term, multi-year journeys. So social change needs consistency. And another gap is the lack of integration. You know, the arts speak to issues the Department of Health, Education, Social Development, and Justice are also fighting. Yet the sectors are really work together with cultural practitioners. So we also need policies that protect and support artists materially, emotionally, and professionally. You can't expect the arts to carry the load of national healing if the artists doing the work are unsupported. So very much important to highlight that artists need to be part of the decision-making spaces, not just beneficiaries of decisions. So strengthening policy means strengthening the people who carry the emotional labor of this work. And that is how impact becomes sustainable.
That is excellent, Zeko. I love how as part of decision-making, there should be practitioners in the room, and it's not left to
exactly
who are there just to secure the bag, hope for the best, and then it's dished out to the actual practitioners
and
who are executing.
Exactly.
So that is absolutely brilliant.
Exactly.
Thank you for that. I'm going to now hop onto Naledi and Jeffrey for the final question. Recommendations. So how can the NAC better partner with communities and creatives to drive social change? I know Tina may have tentatively touched base on this one. We want to hear your insights. We speak of it as an ecosystem that should be available. What can we do better? What can be done? Naledi, go for it.
Yeah. Before I answer that question, I just wanted to add on to the question that was asked earlier, right? I think one major gap is also the lack of consistent funding and support for community-driven arts, especially in rural areas. I'm speaking for myself as someone who runs an NGO that is based in Rustenburg, in the rurals, in the villages, you know, and that kind of really limits access and opportunities for artists to use their work to bring people together and address the social issues that we have to deal with. So I think how the NAC can really partner with communities is by truly decentralizing access and simplifying the funding processes of it all, you know, by really going into these communities, you know, rather than just waiting for applications. Go there, you know, let's do the grassroots and the groundwork. I believe that by valuing that impacts as much as just the commercial success of it all that we see on social media. So that is how I believe the NEC can truly really partner with communities in driving change. Yeah.
Excellent. And thank you for your vulnerability. It actually is about going out there and seeing what's being done instead of waiting. Jeffrey.
What I would like to see is the NAC can allocate a funding stream just for Khoikhoi artists, because Khoikhoi arts is a very deep and broad theater, performing arts, spoken word poetry, and everything, music. So that is the thing. We need financial support. And that stream must be just for us for funding, and not just only a Khoikhoi funding stream. And because we are a broader community as Khoikhoi people and artists, and also arts is something that brings us together. If you want to bring Khoikhoi people together, just do an arts thing. Like I said in the previous segment of questions about when we went to the Richtersveld International Khoikhoi Language Week, it was a big, the community was coming together and it brings us together. So that said, a streaming just for Khoikhoi artists is what is necessary, because we are one of the most marginalized communities that are not being seen or totally excluded. So to do that, we create our own arts for our own people to know that arts is there for us as a community, for communal engagement and communal healing. So a streaming fund just for us is very critical and important. Thank you.
Excellent stuff. Excellent, excellent. Thank you, Jeffrey, for being vulnerable and for speaking your truth. Thank you so much. So we now, of course, move on to the Q&A. I think we need to address some very important questions that were asked to us before I actually officially end off the session. So I'm going to give it about 20 minutes. Bali, you can just indicate to me if that is fine. We have also addressed a lot of Tami Bongo's questions. So thank you, Tami, for your questions. I believe that we did actually interrogate some of them during the context of our engagement. Bongani, is this a question or is it a statement? So let's go back to Tami. Oh, Tami is still in the chat. So Tami was the one who was sending us a lot of questions. It says, how do we reconcile when the physical and economic structures of apartheid remain largely intact? Is reconciliation even possible without structural reform? So I think we tentatively did answer some of that, but if there are any panelists in here who would love to take a go at that, we can do so. We have a hand raised. Okay, so who is raising thy hand? Sorry. Yes.
I'm Bali. We have a hand raised from CMKWA. Yeah, we have allowed him to speak. Yeah.
Fantastic. Thank you. CMKWA, how are you?
Hello, good day to the panel. My name is Celeste.
Celeste.
Yeah, I've got such a lot of questions, but I just wanted to link on to what the panel has already discussed. And this is, for the indigenous groups, which consist of a variety of them. How do we reach them, especially in the rural and urban areas? Now, I'm a storyteller of note. I've been in the arts industry for a long, long time. But I do find the rejection quite a turn-off. That when you apply for funding and you're already in the run and you're doing all these stories and everything, you are stopped. And when you are halted, it blocks off a lot of people, a lot of community development. And I work mostly with the youth. So I wanted to know, in that word of reconciliation, could we just look at how the policy is actually implemented to cover everybody under the same umbrella so that we don't feel excluded or rejected? Thank you.
Wow, fantastic. Thank you, Celeste. That's a powerful one. Tina, you're smiling at me. I don't know if you want to address your sentiments, or if you want to specifically speak to Celeste.
Hi, thank you for that question. I'm not part of a process that facilitates funding, in my general practice of making theatre. How do I think it could happen better? Is literally by connecting people who are, so that we're not working in isolation. So, for example, Celeste meeting with Jeffrey, those are the kind of connections that I feel like, oh, there's a dialogue there that could be happening that might lead to something 5 years from now. This understanding that funding is for a project. A project doesn't last 6 months. A project is a 5-year project at a minimum. And then it moves on to understanding that after 5 years, it might need to evolve. Yeah. And those kind of careful structures and place and systems need to be put into place to support work and connections between artists of different fields. As a lighting designer, meeting a storyteller about the Khoi people, you know, as a lighting designer, not just meeting somebody in a theater space, but meeting them under a tree and going, how do we create lighting under a tree to tell your story if it's in a community that doesn't have funding? Yeah. I'm sorry, I'm not sure if I've answered Celeste's question there, but hopefully it helped.
Absolutely. Celeste, how are you feeling? Does that do something?
Unfortunately, it's not that simple. You see, to say to me that Jeffrey would be the person to talk to, again, we're doing things in isolation. I would far sooner talk to Teko, who is also a playwright, a storyteller, just like me. But then we can cross the borders. We can link the two up, because we cannot work in isolation any longer. Not if we want to promote unity, not if we want to collaborate with one another, not if we want the NAC, who covers the whole of South Africa, as a partner. And that was why I said, you know, I'm an ex-teacher. I served on the panel for many years. I've done the presidential fund and everything, but now I'm sitting on the other side, where I am actually in the position to go to the peri-urban, rural areas, etc., and do work. And no, I'm not just going to meet somebody who comes from my background. And I gave a very good explanation, you know. I'm 50% Bantu. You find that out by doing a DNA testing. And you say to yourself, okay, so how do I fit into the puzzle now? The puzzle has got a lot of fingers. We are all coming from somewhere, and we need to find that point of unity. And so for me, it is all about getting into the fold, but working together with one another, sharing stories. And yes, how else would we be able to amplify voices? You've got your AI and your digital and your Facebook and your TikTok and everything, but people on the ground who do not have these technical facilities still need to hear the stories. They still need healing, and they still are interested in storytelling. And that is what I like to do. That is what I go out to do. So in my profession as an ex-teacher and panelist and storyteller and performer of years and years, I don't just want to work in a bubble. I want to work across the board. And for me, storytelling just does not stay in the comfort of the Western Cape. It travels right across the provinces.
And that's a very powerful point that you're raising, Celeste, and I want to thank you, because you're speaking your truth. And as you say, storytelling is not set in a boundary. It's not set in a and perhaps this is also an opportunity for us to self-reflect and understand that that could be one of the hindrances or gaps that we need to actively work on. As people that are playing parts in the ecosystem of arts and culture, and also working closely with NAC, who are also here with us today. So thank you so much, Celeste. Tina, did you want to perhaps...
I just wanted to add a little bit in there to say, I hear you completely, Celeste, and it's a very good point. And I do think that I wasn't necessarily suggesting stick within a small community. I was arguing for a bigger framework to be revisited so that we can make connections all over the country. I didn't realize you were both from the same place, so it was my mistake. You know, so that you can connect and work outside of a small bubble with other people around the country. But that is an interrogation and a re-strategizing, I suppose, about frameworks and how those links can happen.
Fantastic, fantastic. We do have another question. What support structures exist for small arts organizations? Oh dear. Small arts organizations aiming to expand their impact across multiple communities. So what support structures exist for small arts organizations aiming to expand their impact across multiple communities? Do any of our panelists want to take that on? Perhaps you can talk about it from a personal perspective. You can talk about it from a specific organization that you know. What support structures are you using to amplify your work and to extend your reach, as we've been talking about? Or perhaps there could be a deviation to say, actually, there are none. And that's an opportunity, right, for us to address that gap and talk about it openly. Jeffrey, yes.
Yes, I also do collaborations because currently I'm with a collaboration with Munanai Collective and also the Munanai Theatre in Pau. And also, me and Munanai, we also did a collaboration with Namakoi Productions in the Northern Cape in Sandrup in the Richtersveld. So yeah, we are open for, and also we also had together, came together and said we're gonna create the Khoikhoi Arts Council because I'm also a founding member of the Khoikhoi Arts Council.
Fantastic, fantastic. So you do have some form of support structure that is helping
Yes.
you expand. Okay, excellent, excellent. Teko, do you have any? Or are you experiencing challenges yourself?
Sorry. Oh, yes. I think we experiencing the very same challenges. There are no support at all. There are no structures that supports those people on the ground, people from marginalized areas and all that. So hence one of my suggestions was that if NAC could kindly link us to, those mental health support groups. We also have schools to partner with. We also have all those institutions that deals with social ills. Why can't we link all those institutions with arts practitioners? And it was one of my requests that NAC could at least link us with those.
Correct,
Yes.
Naledi, I see you furiously nodding your head. And I know that this is a pain point for you because you did express it earlier on. Tell us some of your challenges and what some of your ideas perhaps that you've had when you've been reflecting about how passionate you are and the roadblocks ahead.
Oof.
It's a lot, ne? Do we need to go on an ad break?
It is a lot, and it's quite upsetting. Someone said, I think in the comments that, we go to these communities and we get this funding, right? And we do these life-changing projects, and then the funding stops, and it's like, how do we then remain consistent and still wanting to continue making a change, but we incapable because we don't have the resources. I'll speak for myself. I had a project that was funded by another funder. We ran that project for a year, and after that it was like so tough. It still is tough, but what keeps me going is just the passion to really drive change in my community and really see young people change their lives using arts. That's truly what really encourages me to keep going. But outside of that, there aren't really other support structures outside of the government funding that really helps us, especially people that are running organizations in the rural areas. It's tough. It's tough, Amali. It's tough.
It's tough. And, I'm also slightly triggered because at some points I did business coaching early in my early days, and there were never that many resources or support interventions. Even if you do the training afterwards for 5 days, no one is going back to check, did these businesses actually get off the ground? Yeah. So it seems like communities, especially on the outskirts, are constantly marginalized. And it seems like it's happening across the board. And I think there's a bigger layer there or an ill that we need to still discuss, as practitioners. So yeah, I absolutely hear it. I don't think we have any more questions. There's one more from Albert. It says, Albert Zwane, I'm Vusi Zwane, a theatre practitioner from Tsakane. Which mechanisms can we use to ensure that we make engagements to influence the national treasury to increase budget for artists so that it can cater for many artists or community theatre organizations around South Africa? The budgeting and the funding is always going to be a bit of a roadblock and a painful one, because even for bigger productions, they also are struggling to scale to that level. So I don't know if there's any specific individual who wants to take this one on, but what mechanisms can we use to ensure that we make engagements to influence the National Treasury? I also think it's just part and parcel collaborating with the NAC and coming together and forming bodies, institutional bodies or practitioner bodies, ways in which we can actively network and make sure that our voices are heard. But of course, it's an ongoing journey. It's not going to happen overnight. I think we have tentatively come to the end of the Q&A. And of course, then I would love to wrap up the session. Of course, before I do, I will hand over to Mbalenhle. But from my end, as well as the respective panelists, thank you so much for joining us. It has been an absolute honor engaging with your audience today and also hearing the wonderful work that is being done by our panelists. I do have a quote. So it says, "Creativity is allowing yourself to make mistakes. Art is knowing which ones to keep." So make those mistakes. And keep the good ones, because that's what actually makes the good stories. So on my end, thank you so much. I'm going to hand over through to Mbalenhle.
Thank you so much, Mbali. Thanks to everyone. This has been such a productive discussion in celebration of the Reconciliation Month. We would like to thank you as our moderator, all our panel members, our stakeholders, and our viewers on Facebook and everyone on Zoom chat. And from the rest of the NAC team, would like to wish you a safe festive season. Please be on the lookout on our social media platforms. We have the latest funding calls. And good afternoon. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Goodbye.